if the only thing like is stopping me from a potential opportunity is me not willing to just record myself and try, or like me not being willing to fail enough time, like me looking stupid, I'm missing out on the potential for my life to change potentially.
Sure.
Now I have to be responsible for having the infrastructure after that and to make it sustainable. But like sometimes that's like the hurdle that is the hardest for people, or even just putting out their
Yes.
music. And I'm like, I wouldn't be Strawberries and Wine would have never had the opportunity to blow up if I didn't just put it out. Like if I overthought it or was like it's not perfect. And so I'm trying to have the same approach with content. And I wouldn't be able to have this identity that I found if I would have like let that viral moment like defeat me and be like, oh, I didn't capitalize on it, you know? So
what's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari and Jaylon, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, the book. Third edition is out now everywhere. All formats, audio, hardcover, ebook, however you find books. Today, my guest is Jaylon Ashaun.
Life gon' throw some punches, get sometimes you gotta roll with it. Hope you flexible just in case you gotta go with it. Think I'm Master P, feeling like I got no limits.
Very talented R&B artist, currently based out of LA, previously Atlanta, before that grew up in Houston. He found success by regularly releasing music. This is honestly before the TikTok era. His song Strawberries and Wine, you may know it. It really took off all through the kind of Spotify universe. That song has over 20 million, actually 25 million streams of the various versions. He toured last year the US with Xavier Omar and Hojean, and he is currently working on collaboration projects right now with other great artists. His music is fantastic. You should definitely check it out. Today we talk about how he is developing his Superfan community, which is kind of the next wave of the industry. And you'll hear us get into that, and we chop it up quite a bit towards the end on kind of where the future of the music industry is going. And you know, it was cool because he talks about his whole journey of how he got started, what it was like moving from Houston to Atlanta, the R&B community and scene, and how he was kind of developing his sound and his artistry, transitioning and evolving from somebody who knows his music to then know him as an artist, and kind of that challenge of when you have success just on a song or two or three, to really bring them into your artist world and your entire ecosystem. So he talks about how he's doing that and where he sees the future of the industry and his artistry and community. We touch on this a little bit, but Jaylon is totally DIY. He uses the independent distributor Too Lost, and Too Lost is a partner of Ari's Take, and they're one of the preferred and recommended distributors out there by Ari's Take, and I've explored them quite a bit, and they're great. So definitely check them out. They're part of my new comparison. They're one of the newer distributors out there, and they're now part of Jaylon's journey. So you can check out Jaylon Ashaun everywhere that you find music and on the socials and all of that. Find all of us that make the show happen at Ari's Take on the socials and all of that. You can find me at Ari Jaylon on Instagram. But right now, if you could just pause this, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, subscribe, hit the follow button. If you're listening and watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like this to show up in your feed, and head over to aristake.com, get on the email list. That's where you're going to get the most up-to-date relevant information about the new music business. All right, let's kick into the show. Jaylon Ashaun, welcome to the show.
What's up? Thanks for having me, man.
Totally. Where are you coming to me from? Where are you based now?
Yeah, I'm in LA. Yeah. I'm originally
You're in LA.
from
Okay.
Houston, but I'm in LA now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. When did you make the trip over to LA?
I've been here for about a year and a half. I moved here last February.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, why the move?
So I was living in Atlanta before LA, about 5 years there. And like, it was me and my wife, and we both were just kind of like, oh, we think it's time. Like we felt like we had got like all that we could get out of Atlanta. And one of my good friends, Zach Paradise, who's my engineer and just like helps me a lot with my music, he had moved out here like 6 months earlier. I don't like the cold, And like, it was either going to be LA or New York, but since New York is like cold half the year,
Cold.
I just imagined my dog like I think I had like a dream that my dog was like freezing on the sidewalk trying to walk in New York. And I was like, no, we got to go to LA.
It was the nightmare that you had.
Yeah, it was like, no, I can't do that.
Let me tell you, dogs do better than humans do in cold weather. Like,
Probably so.
As someone who grew up in the Midwest in like negative temperatures and through blizzards and grew up with a dog, they're just fine in the cold. We're the ones that freeze our asses off.
I don't know, man. My dog's from Texas, so I'm like, I feel like I would just be making him suffer to go from.
Well, that's very sweet of you.
You know?
So has the fam been doing well in LA? You're digging it here for the last year and a half?
Love it. I feel like LA is like such a cool. I mean, I got to meet you in LA, you know? Like, so
that's right.
That's the beauty of LA.
That is true. Like so many people are here, and it is, it's just a hub. Everyone migrates here.
Yeah.
That want to take their music career seriously, and just like everyone's hustling. You're like the king of hustle, and I want to kind of get into that a little bit. I saw from your tour last year with Xavier Omar. There was this moment where he kind of like stopped the show and talked a little bit about your hustle and like gave you a shout out. I was just like, giving you some flowers of just like, how you hit him up way back in the day and it wasn't time. Tell me that story of just like your journey or what that was about, and just kind of, how that tour ended up happening, but really the whole journey, because I only got that little glimpse from the Instagram post.
No, that was a special moment, and shout out to Xavier Omar, like one of my such a great guy and inspiration. So like, I've been doing music for a minute now. I mean, I was trying to think about it earlier today. Probably like 5+ years. I've been singing since I was little. Like, so music has always been in me. But like actually building the infrastructure in the business and actually putting out content even before Reels and TikToks were a thing. I mean, it's been several years. And oddly enough, I knew Xavier for a few years because we kind of ran through some of the same circles. He's from Texas. I'm from Texas. We had some mutual friends. And early on, like you, as an artist, you naturally want to just like connect with artists that you look up to. And so, I hit him up early on. I think I was on his radar. And even like South by Southwest, we did some shows where I was, I was opening, like, or I was like, third tier down, and he may have been headlining.
Right.
And, you do the classic shake your hand, hope you remember me. And I think he just, from those moments, he's seen how hard I've been working and just really not giving up. So, yeah.
That's great. How did that tour end up happening with Xavier?
Connections, man. Xavier, one time I had saw, when I was in Atlanta, he did a show. And I don't think I hit him for some reason, just because, there's like this cliche of like, you have some people who don't like when you ask for stuff, and you have some people who do.
Yeah.
And so he let this dude open for him. And I mean, size is always subjective, but he was relatively like small compared to me, especially at the time. Maybe he was an underground artist. He opened for Xavier, and I DM'd him or texted him afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, yo, what's up? Like, how'd this dude get on?" He was like, "Oh, he just asked me," and I went to his profile and I liked his stuff. And I was like, "Bro, all I had to do was ask." So the next time he went on tour, I just shot him a text. I was like, "Yo, can I get on a few days?" And that's how it happened.
Isn't that amazing? Like that, I feel like it seems so obvious, but most artists don't think to do that. I've heard, honestly, more times than not, that is exactly the story that I've heard from so many artists of every genre. Yeah. Honestly, like just DMing the artist saying, "Hey, I saw you announce a tour, you're coming through, or whatever. Can I open?"
Yeah.
And like, the artists, no matter how big they are, they read their DMs, they look at their shit, and it's wild, and they will snoop and they will check it out, and like, if you tag them on a cover that you do or something like that, they will typically snoop and so that's cool. I mean, props to you for putting yourself out there. I mean, I know it can be uncomfortable for artists because you think that it should be the management and the industry people talking, my people talk to your people, whatever. But like, those barriers have really broken down.
Yeah, and it's all about relationships, man. I mean, I feel like the whole industry is all about who you know and who knows you, and like if you can. And I've heard from countless people that like artists like to talk to artists. Even people in the industry like to talk to artists as opposed to like feeling like they have to go through somebody to get to you. So like,
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. So tell me a little bit about your journey. Because right, I saw that you put your first song out in 2016, but it was a little like, not consistent until a little bit later when you're kind of doing your rough drafts project, which I want to hear about because that's so cool and fascinating. But yeah, I mean, like, talk to me about growing up in Houston and then like moving to Atlanta, then moving here and like doing all these projects that you've been doing and just exploring it DIY.
Yeah, no, 100%. So one, I mean, Texas has a different type of like pride that it builds into you that you don't realize until like later on. That like I thought
they flagged the Texas flag higher than the American flag. I know all about that.
Yeah, bro. Like I didn't realize until I got older that like not every commercial says Texas. Like we got Ford is the best in Texas. We got jingles that they just throw Texas in there to like hype it up. So I was like, Texas is the best place in the world. But I consider like Texas, like, that's where my family is. That's where I really got a lot of my roots and my foundations. That's where I fell in love and discovered music. Like even throughout high school and stuff, I was always interested in like poetry. I grew up singing in church and like remember having a keyboard. But I was never like I was around a lot of gospel influences, but I felt like I was never like a crazy charismatic singer. Like was never crazy at runs and all that. And at first that was kind of discouraging because of the environment that I was in. But what I learned during that time was like I was really good at melodies and writing songs. I think one of my first 2 CDs that I fell in love with were Kanye West's College Dropout and One Republic's Dreaming Out Loud. And like, I feel like that's kind of a mixture of kind of even my sound now. It's like these pop and hip hop influences. And that carried me to, later on. And back when I was in school, I just put out a song like randomly. It was called Love Me. I don't even know if it's on the internet anymore. And I listened back and it was not a good song. The songwriting was pretty good, but like I put it out and people were like, oh, this is fire. And it kind of gave me the blind encouragement at the time to like really keep going. And I think that's what gave me the motivation to really start pursuing music. Like I knew I was talented, but that was the time where I was like, oh, I can put out, back then it was like CDs and I can make a CD and put it out and see if my friends will get it. And then that evolved to people who I didn't know. I did a small run kind of during that time. Same exact way too with a band called the Oh Hellos. They're like a folk kind of rock band. They're big, but they were some of my friends at Texas State. And got to tour with them. So I got a lot of tour experience early on. And I used to even do like concert photography and stuff. And so I was just kind of always immersed in music.
Were you producing your own music back then, or were you working with producers, engineers, friends?
No, I was just working with friends in the community and like, especially because I was in school at the time. So it was just like a hub. It was like living in LA without paying LA prices. It was like, oh, everybody's just here. Just hungry and ready to work. No, for real. And it wasn't until Atlanta, I feel like that was kind of the time where I started to birth my musical journey. I even did like a big show that I produced and different events during that time. Then I moved to Atlanta, and I feel like that's what really like helped me hone my sound. Because Atlanta's just it's a different place, man. Like I think I had never experienced culture like that. And it just really began to shape not only like me as a person, but me as a musician. And got connected with some really dope creatives, like who I was telling you, my boy Zach, who engineers. And I met my main videographer out there. And just really, like, that's where Final Draft was, and the Rough Draft series was birthed. And that was just a really defining time to help me get to where I'm at now.
Nice. So yeah, let's talk about those rough drafts and Final Draft, the album, which I recognize behind you right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's right. So tell me how that project came to be and just like what inspired you to start regularly putting out music.
Yeah. So this was like 2019, 2018, around that time, and I was making music, but I had recognized that like people already weren't really checking for like albums. Like I had friends who has spent like a year working on an album for, nobody to like care once it dropped, right?
Right.
And I knew that like that's not how I wanted to invest my time. And at that time, I had saw one of my friends from Houston. His name is Toby Nwigwe. And
Oh, yeah.
he was just doing his Get Twisted Sunday series. And oddly enough, I knew him from Houston in some different showcases. And so I got to see it before. It was starting to get some traction, but I was even able to see him on like Facebook when it was like super unpolished. And I remember him saying like he was committed to just like dropping weekly. I think at that time, like a lot of the Russ conversation was being talked about too. But I just saw that as a opportunity for me to say, okay, cool. Like I don't want to go the cover route because I don't think, especially at that time, I wasn't a strong cover artist, and I just didn't want that to kind of define me. And but I was like, I could write songs really well, and I struggle with the concept of an album. So what if I just put out a bunch of ideas, and then work with a videographer, and like for so many weeks straight, we just drop a song and a visual every week. This is pre-TikTok. This was pre-IG Reels. So it was a little more like, it stood out a little more. I know everybody's kind of dropping every day now, but like at that time, it was like.
Where were you putting these out?
On Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even think Instagram will let you do over a minute at that time yet either. It was like.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I would drop it every Wednesday.
And would you also release the audio to like SoundCloud or Spotify or anything?
I was dropping it on Spotify. Yeah, I was dropping it on DSPs.
You were actually officially releasing them. Okay.
Yeah, it was called Rough Draft. I would do like Rough Draft Wednesday. I think I was dropping on Wednesday. It would be like a 1-minute song before 1-minute songs were a thing. And it was kind of dope because we were like very committed to like coming out with something every week. And it eventually, we just started noticing it was shareable content. Like that was the thing that like I knew at the time was important. Like people need to get behind something and be willing to share it. And people started tracking along. And I didn't know this at the time, but I think what made that project really stand out was because I was connected to so many artists. There's a lot of, this probably also happens in LA, a lot of like, oh, let's work. Oh, let's do this. But at that time I was trying to figure myself out. And so it was kind of hard to let people, I wasn't as collaborative at the time because I didn't know what made sense and I didn't want to get stuck in certain boxes. But because I had these short songs that I already knew that people liked, I was like, okay, well, I already have a verse and a chorus. This could be an opportunity to let some other people be on the record. And so once we were finishing the project, I was able to shop those songs to all of my friends who wanted to work in the past. And it just kind of created this way to collaborate in a unique way that everyone was involved.
Nice.
So.
That's great. When did you notice that things were starting to pick up? And did any of those kind of rough draft, I guess, songs, did you notice kind of a lift anywhere on Instagram or Spotify or anywhere else?
Yeah. Honestly, man, the first one, one of my biggest songs right now is Strawberries and Wine. That was the first rough draft that I wrote and put it out. Like, and I don't think I went into it knowing that any of that stuff was going to take off. But I think at that time, seeing people who like didn't know that I didn't know directly start commenting and sharing, those were the moments where I was like, oh, okay, this has some traction to it. I remember walking in a Kroger right by my house at the time, and I was just shopping, and this random dude was like, oh, aren't you the dude who does rough drafts? And I remember that being a moment that I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
We're doing
cool.
something. Yeah. Facts.
You're onto something.
Right.
Well, yeah, let's talk about Strawberries and Wine a little bit, because that's still your number one song on Spotify at least. And you have the acoustic version, you have the album version from Final Draft. I've seen it's had some, new lives pick up on, the socials on TikTok, on Instagram. You've now done kind of a collab with Simone. So tell me about the journey of Strawberries and Wine and just kind of like how it took off and just like where that traction came from.
Yeah. So, the song I literally wrote in my car. I was thinking through like I was literally talking to some friends yesterday about it. I was like, what's the crack in this song? I'm trying to figure it out. But I just remember that song just kind of coming really naturally. I had a dope producer send me some beats, and I tried it, and we made a dope visual. And I remember at the time it got the traction, but I think where it really took off was so I got early access to Discover Mode through our connections with DistroKid. It helped push that song, and people just really liked it, and it became kind of a catapult for my catalog. And so that was really the connection. And I don't think I realized how big that song was until I went on tour with Hojean last year. And like that song came on and everyone was singing it. Cause I haven't really done any like shows where I'm headlining. And so I haven't really got to, see that for myself. But like that was the first time where I was like, oh, I'm in a room of 1,500 people that I don't know, and they're singing this song word for word.
They're singing the song. That's so cool. I mean, so it was really Spotify Discovery Mode. I mean, which is wild to me because I mean, I don't think it's as powerful now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like at that time when not that many people were like, there was just a select few, like you said, there were the labels that got early access to it, and then some select artists with some select distributors that had early access. And an artist that I manage, similarly, we got early access through our distributor months before they opened it up wide. And we saw some traction, not like this. I mean, this has 15 million streams. I mean, so like that's so fascinating to me. So when you put it in Discovery Mode, did you see it just like shoot up and then start getting added to a bunch of algorithmic playlists, or just like it grow there? Or was it in combination with like other things happening at the same time?
No, it was, I don't know if we had I don't know if it was just an immediate spike, but we started seeing it grow. And
cool.
And it just kind of kept climbing. Like I think if I can even look at my Spotify charts, we can see when it was like, getting crazy plays. And this was, still I feel like it was still pre TikTok, I don't know when Discover Mode dropped, but it had to be kind of somewhere around that. And ironically enough, it was the acoustic version that took off, which I just kind of dropped that randomly. And I think that just kind of gave everything more momentum.
So I mean, when TikTok, you are very active on TikTok over kind of the pandemic era. I mean, 2021, 22. I saw you're doing a lot of like the duets. Which was popular then. And like funny. You're doing the TikTok thing. So tell me about your relationship with TikTok. Versus Instagram, versus everything else that you're doing live, and just like, how that is just, your relationship with TikTok, I guess.
Yeah, so a big part of my journey, which I think social media plays into this, and it makes sense for even where I'm at currently. I had that kind of momentum happening without really any social media push at the time. I think I was a late early adopter to TikTok. Like I wasn't on the first wave, but I was still, I got on when they were still giving out crazy views. I had like 3 posts go viral kind of accidentally. One was I just sung like one line of a One Direction song, and that was the first one that took off. It was crazy. I didn't even know the song. It was so random. And then I did a remix version to Adele's Easy on Me at the time. And that one kind of, it went, I think it got like 750,000 views. That's the post that really got me to like 70K. And I was just like, this is crazy. I think I was also a little, when it popped, it happened a little, what's the word? Early. It happened before other people started popping a little bit. So I didn't really have a framework to follow. Like I didn't see like what would happen if somebody popped and how you should kind of keep posting and all that. I was actually under the mindset that I shouldn't post more because it might take away the momentum for that post.
Interesting.
So I was, and none of my team really knew either. We looked back on that moment and was like, oh, at that time, I didn't even know we could drop the cover. Like people were DMing me being like, oh, are you going to drop this? Are you going to finish it? And I was like, no. And I think that was because I had already had apprehension to covers before. and I didn't want to become a cover artist. And then I also just didn't know. And so I think I look back at that moment, I'm like, oh, like I think we could have capitalized on that moment to at least help obviously move some of these listeners over to following me. But we just didn't know at the time. So I've had my ups and downs with that. And then I think, you know, when it came to the rough drafts, for me, that was an opportunity to express myself in a really artistic and more polished way. And so honestly, when TikTok came to the scene, it almost kind of stunted me for a while because I was like, oh, I don't really know how to present myself outside of me being this cool guy who writes dope songs. Like, it's easy for me to be like, people be like, oh, I like this song and I like the way you sound. But outside of that, I was like, oh, I don't really know what's obvious, especially just in a phone sense. And so it kind of took me a few years to like try a bunch of stuff, like even like figure out my identity when it came to that, because I felt like then it turned into, you know, I was just trying to duplicate what other people were doing, and, you know, and it just wasn't working. Like it just never, it never worked. I was never able to kind of recreate that. And so I think through that, there was always this like kind of frustration, but it eventually led to like me continuing to do personal development so that I can, you know, so that I could grow as an artist and connect with people. Because where I'm at now, what I learned was even Spotify Discovery Mode and all these other platforms, they kind of created a lot of passive listeners for me, right? In fact, one time I was getting lunch and this girl came up to me and she was trying to invite me to something. And so I was giving her my number and I was like, oh yeah, my name is Jaylon. And she was like, I spelled it. She was like Jaylon Ashaun. And she had no idea who I was or how I looked or anything.
Get out.
Yeah, it was so, I was like, oh, this is crazy. But like, I think because of Strawberries and Wine, Discover Mode, and, you know, maybe these content pieces, like at some point people have connected with me, but they may not know me as a person. And also I never really knew how to present myself as, you know, more than this musician.
They knew the name because maybe they listened to the song and they just like saw the name on Spotify or something like that, but they didn't know you as the artist, and they weren't kind of like, they didn't take that step deeper into your artist project. Now, I mean, you did have a song, you had Good With Me went pretty crazy viral on TikTok as a song. I mean, I saw a video where the MLB posted Megan Thee Stallion throwing out the first pitch, and like your song is right there, and it is like the soundtrack to that video, and everyone was using it, and your little like whoop in there. It's like it's like it was such a moment. How did that happen? And tell me about that journey,
bro. Same thing. I think so. I mean, we've been grateful to you know have access to stuff early. So some of my catalog is in the Spotify or in the TikTok CML, and they just started pushing. Like I didn't have nothing to do with that. It was kind of like, oh, this song is going viral. Oh, people are really using this. And then honestly, it's kind of been like the same situation where it's like, okay, people like this sound for whatever reason. They're using it.
Yeah.
Now, how do we connect them to me, or how do we kind of capitalize on this moment?
Right. Right.
And so it's honestly been the same thing. Like, but I will say the difference between then and now is that I actually have an infrastructure, and I actually have... we spent more time developing and world building. And so now I have a place to invite people into if they desire. Whereas before, I didn't have any of that. It was just kind of like, cool, here's more music, you know?
So let's talk about that. Tell me more about this world building. What do you invite them into?
Yeah, so, you know, got this hat, which I'm trying to figure out. Here we go. So
the Nomad hat.
The Nomad hat,
that's great.
the custom.
For your recent album,
Yeah, so
EP, I guess, and the song.
No, so for real, that's really where I landed. I mean, I kind of how I told you, you know, I lived in Houston, I lived in Atlanta, now I'm in LA. I love New York, I love all these places. I've been overseas, and I realized, I feel like I have a home in all these places. Like I love to travel, I love the new experiences. And after I had finished my chapter 3 project, I was like, or my epilogue project, I was like, oh, I think I should do a project called Nomad. And like the song titles be like airports or cities that I love. And as I was making that project, I was like, oh, this feels like me. And I think over the past few years, I've been trying to figure out like, how do I share me with other people outside of just music? And what do I have to say? Because I'm also very business minded, but I didn't want to be like, I love Russ, but I didn't want all of me to just be like entrepreneurship and this is how you grow your business. And this was something that I finally was like, oh, I love this and I think other people will love this. And so let me build a world that I can invite people into this and share my experiences and hear their experiences and have, dope designs and all that around this. And so that's kind of where I landed, that's the world that I'm inviting people into.
Nice. And so, I mean, more kind of materially, logistically, mechanically, like however you want to call it. I'm just curious, like, just to get into the weeds a little bit more. Where is the invitation to? Is it to your merch store? Is it to a fan club that you have? Is it to your Instagram? Like, what are you actually literally inviting them to when they like land on your project? Where do you point them?
Yeah, so I got a couple things. So obviously I look at like Instagram and Spotify. It's like if you're looking at a funnel, that's top of the funnel. That's all these fish are coming through. And if they want to take the next step, one thing that I offer right now is I have kind of a community called Global Nomads or Nomad HQ. And so that's really for like the top fans who are really interested. They can join that and then they get all these updates, a lot of free behind the scenes, free demos. They can support if they want to. I have a free tier. There's also like a paid tier if you want more exclusive stuff. In fact, I'm actually just this month we're doing a thing called upgrading people to first class because Nomad plane instead, and the concept is dope because it's like, oh, first class obviously gets exclusive perks, they get more personal items, and so I'm even going to be like sending those fans like personal like postcards with like Polaroids of what we're doing, just like really going deep with the community, and so that's really what I'm inviting people into. Obviously, also like
what platform is that community on?
Yeah, it's called Grouped. It's a platform called Group. Cool. Yeah, if you haven't heard of it, it's really dope for artists who want to build a community. They're
nice,
dope. And then obviously I'm also doing like right now I'm doing like merch for actual like physical CDs. I was gonna grab one so you can see it. I don't have one on me, but
physical CDs.
Yeah, actually, let me show you.
Tell me about that. Is there a demand that you're seeing for physical CDs, man, or is it just like a souvenir item? Is that
Yeah, man. Oh, man, it's dope, bro. This isn't the Nomad one, but this is Final Draft. You said, yeah, here we go.
Oh yeah,
you get this dope little.
Look at you with your
postcard,
CDs and flyers,
bro. I didn't think there was a demand for it, and then I started working with this agency who was like, "Nah, man, this is one way that we kind of push artists to connect with it." Like, and so I give away a free CD. All you gotta do is pay for shipping, and then like you can get more if you want to. Like there's other offers, and like because I had never did that. I had never like in my head you would think CDs don't sell. It's 2024. Like nobody even has a CD player.
Right.
And I started doing it, and not only like are people buying CDs, but also like I'm getting in front of new people. Like, and people are like, "Yo, like who is this guy?" So they're being able to discover my music for the first time, and they're buying product that will live even longer than just a stream. So it's actually been really dope, and I'm excited to build off that.
That's interesting. So are these like your fans that are buying the CDs, or did you say like
it's a
this
mix.
Is
it's
okay. So yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's a mix. It's obviously I have my direct fans, so people who are already in my community, I can message them directly and say, "Hey, here's I just dropped some CDs if you want some." Boom, and so people engage there. And then also we're running like ads and stuff to new people who've never heard of me. And so I just never thought it would be a thing, but it kind of gave me the courage to be like, oh, like I've always had a merch store, but you know how it is. Sometimes merch stores just sit there and you just have all these products that don't do anything. And so now it's kind of giving me a new way to really see how I can put myself in front of people and make valuable offers. So I've always been like scared. I'm like, no, what if I get all this stuff and nobody buys it? And I'm like, oh, There are people who want this.
No, I know. And I mean, CDs are far cheaper than vinyl records. And it's like, it's a lot easier to make CDs than it is to make records. Just the whole process of it. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of artists, myself included, I completely gave up on CDs. I didn't think there was a demand or anything for that. So, I mean, it is kind of like a souvenir.
Yeah.
You know, people buy, maybe you can go through the liner notes, you get to hold it. They're still going to listen to the record on their favorite streaming service. They're not, but it's like, it's this relic from, a time past that they can do it. Like, I'm a huge vinyl head, but I actually I put the record on, I got a turntable, I listen to the record, I pull out the, liner notes, I read the lyrics, I read the credits. I mean, I love that experience, smelling the whole thing, that whole very visceral experience, physical experience of the process. Whereas I'm curious how people interact with CDs. Now, when you toured and you had your merch at live, were you selling CDs there, and were people buying
all
those
I
at
had
the
was
merch stand?
all I had was shirts. But now I'll take them.
Okay.
But it's cool. You're right. Like, it's like,
Be curious.
it's a relic at this point. That's also how I pitch it. It's like, one thing about my CDs and like my music is like, people really have always complimented like the artwork. And one time somebody sent me a photo in an album store where I guess they had printed a bunch of like album covers, and mine was randomly there printed. I've seen my cover on Amazon and Etsy being sold by I don't know who. So like, I think that also plays into it. So maybe it's an art piece. But it's just dope. I want to do vinyls too, but I needed to start this to even get the confidence to like do vinyl.
It is like an art piece. And at the shows, I mean, it's something that you can sign, that they can have, they can put up. I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people buy the record, either vinyl or CD or something, just to put it up on their wall or just to display it as kind of like a memento of the experience that they had at your show or something. That's so fascinating to me. I mean, I've seen these companies. I know about some of these agencies and companies that run these ads to like a landing page to get the CD for free. They just pay for shipping, which is like $5 or something. So it's not really free. It's like they're paying $5 and then they get a CD at their door. But they're like, it's to a cold audience. So I like pass that off of just like,
no, you should. You know what's funny? This just came to mind, bro. I watched your course a long time ago when y'all were doing the story ads. So it's funny talking to you about this because they taught me something. Yeah.
Well, right. So what we do in the academy is for that what you're talking about, that is running ads to bring people to streaming services, to Spotify, which makes to me that's like that's to like start that top of funnel experience, and then eventually they go down in like you start at Spotify, they listen to the music, it goes down the funnel, they become a fan, and then you sell them something. But this like flips that on its head, where it's like you reach a cold audience, you don't send them to a streaming service to listen to your music to see if they like it. You send them straight to buy a CD.
Yeah, but you also can if they buy.
And it works.
Because I have my little QR. So if you don't know me, you can hear it. But it's a different type of experience, man. I think so I've done different ads. Honestly, for me, the best thing that worked for me was obviously the Discover mode. So now that it's kind of different, we're trying to figure out like what's new. I think in this era, at least what I've seen, organic social, like if you're not trying to drop crazy amounts of money, if you can like really commit to like making great content, like it'll help push people to the top of your funnel to at least become aware of you. But this is cool. It's just a different experience, man. It is. It's like, and it's beneficial because you can nurture your current fans, and because people want to support. Like all the time, I had people being like, "Yo, how can I support?" But I never really had anything to offer them, and so like this is cool because I can nurture from them. I can hear what they like, hear what they want, and surprisingly, like it gets me in front of new people. Like I literally saw somebody tag me in a post today that I didn't know. That was like, "Oh, I've been seeing this dude's ads, and the target audience is on point because this is great." And so now I'm like, "Oh, you're hearing my music. You didn't know who I was, and I can engage with you. You may have not even bought anything, but like it's kind of doing a lot of the same stuff, And now if you do buy something, now you're in my in my world and I can communicate with you and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, if they buy something, you get their direct contact information. Whereas, like, that's the challenge of sending people to Spotify is we get no data really, specific data from Spotify. We get those top level analytics, but we don't get who they are. We don't get a way to contact those listeners directly, which is like a broken aspect of the music industry if we really think about it. I mean, like any other industry, a company knows who their customers are. Like there are platforms like, there are ways to communicate with your customers, and we don't have a way to really do that in a very targeted, cohesive way. We're like, go listen to our music on Spotify, and then they get then Spotify locks up that data behind their wall. Spotify gets that data, and you
got to pay Spotify to get access to it. Yeah.
It's fucked up. And I mean, it's like that's my biggest gripe with Spotify. Honestly, more than and Apple Music. I mean, I don't want to throw Spotify in there, but literally every DSP, Tidal, Amazon Music, I mean, you name it. That is my biggest gripe with streaming, I should say, these days, is that they don't give us the data of our listeners. I don't like top level analytics. Okay, cool. Like, Seattle's my 27th most popular city. But if I can't contact my fans in Seattle, how am I supposed to let them know about the show or sell them a T-shirt or the CD or whatever? You end up having to do it
through their platform.
It's like exactly, which is wild because it's still so locked up. Where like there's literally no other industry on the planet where the seller cannot reach their customer, and then if their customer buys something from them or interacts with their product like they do on streaming service for us, that you can't follow back up with them and then, resell to them, upsell to them, all of that stuff. So, it is interesting. And I feel like we are moving into this era of super fandom. Like, I feel like the next wave of the industry is going to be communities, like these super fan communities, like what you're doing with Nomad HQ, with your community. It's like, that is a future because like, I think we're all just fed up with sending people to these streaming services. And it can be good, like you experience, where you can reach a really broad audience if you win, if like the Spotify gods bless you.
Seriously.
Or whatever.
Seriously.
Like, it doesn't happen for everybody, but we're going to be evolving, I think, as an industry to what you're doing right now. And you're at the start of that curve, and I think it's great with really developing this community into the super fandom, because that's the only real way to sustain a career, and is going to be, because I mean, streaming, unless you're getting millions of listeners, like that's not sustainable financially. And then touring can be, but like, how are you supposed to contact those listeners? It's just like, it's so disjointed.
I don't know. Touring,
right now.
Everybody who I've talked to in tour, and I'm like, I've toured a little bit, and I was like, oh, this is mad expensive. Like, I don't know how people do this. And like, you literally are only doing it for fun and to like meet people, to like build relational capital. But like, as far as financially it being profitable, it just seems so hard these days.
I mean, you got to get like, it can be profitable, but you need to run it like a machine. Like, it needs to be, your merch operation needs to be on point, your expenses, the way that it's toured. I mean, it's a lot to manage and handle. And, it's weird because at certain levels, the calculations completely change. So it's like, I've almost talked to agents and managers and artists where they're like, the club level, the 1,500 cap club level is the most profitable until you reach like a superstar status, because like everything above that, the rental fees are so insane. The expenses are just massive. You got to tour with huge production, and like, it's tough at that theater level, even the arena level, like the smaller kind of arena level is really tough. But I mean, it can be profitable if done in a way that makes sense, but it's gotten, I mean, a lot more challenging over the last decade, I'd say.
Do you feel like, I don't know if you've seen that tweet or article that's going around from that guy who made that YouTube video about how the music industry kind of feels like did he say a pyramid scheme kind of, right? I think it was a pyramid scheme, or no, like the multi-level marketing type schemes where basically it's only the top
MLMs.
level that really can survive, like until you break, into a certain percentile. It
See, I don't. Oh yeah,
no,
sorry.
no, that was it. That was it.
Continue.
Yeah, like it.
I'm not familiar with this. Send this to me. I want to read this thing.
Okay.
But I personally I disagree with that
Okay.
sentiment that it's only the superstars. Like I feel like that was the truth maybe 20, 30 years ago. There was this bigger distinction, and I mean the data shows that it's like previously historically like there were fewer artists that controlled the revenue, the global recorded music revenue was controlled by fewer labels, fewer artists, and it was just at the top. Now that revenue is being split up maybe a little too much because the way that the economics of streaming work right now, which I don't support.
Yeah.
Like I don't think we should be on this pro rata model where they pay you based on the percentage of the streams that you get versus all the other streams on the platform. That's the amount of money that you get. It's just like it doesn't work well because that money gets diluted. Then you have songs that just get a few streams are taking away a lot of that money, and it's like it's not going to the artists with the real fans. And if you have real fandom, that you don't get financially rewarded by real fandom because you have like 1,000 super fans that listen to your music all the time. Let's say they listen to your record 10 times a month, and that's like 10,000 streams, 1,000 super fans listening 10 times. That's nothing. That's like dollars or whatever. Whereas like if those 1,000 super fans bought a CD, that's $10,000. That's substantial a month. So it's like that system's broken. However, what I do think is what like where we are now, and what is helpful is that artists can reach a niche audience that they couldn't do before, and we don't necessarily need the gatekeepers of and the permission of the industry to have a career. Now, I would argue it is a lot more challenging these days because there is no straight line or pathway forward to have that career. But like I just went to a show last night by this guitar player named Giacomo Turo, and he's playing 600 cap club here, and the whole tour is doing that. He tours as a 4-piece, and like he's from Italy. I mean, it's instrumental guitar funk, like, and he's touring the world. Like that would have never had a chance 20 years ago. Like that is just not something that would reach an audience. But because the algorithms and the internet have given the artist the ability to find their specific audience that would get into that, like that is, can be a benefit of this industry. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like the best time to be an artist and the worst time to be an artist at the exact same time.
I think about me too. I'm kind of like, man, I don't know if, I think about back when I was just making CDs and kind of in school. And like, I remember going to like radio stations and sync companies and all this. Obviously, my music was not nearly in a place like it was now. But I remember that was kind of the type of time you had to be on and going to people and trying to get them to buy your CDs and stuff like that. Where like now, we just have so many tools. But I think because there's so many artists, because you see so much content, it's just easy to either get that like discouraged or defeated or like just tired, maybe just drained, like the 3D.
Absolutely.
And so, but at the same time, like to me, I think one reason I feel like I've gotten so far is being able to, even if it's not even though I haven't had my hit, it's like persevere, because I've seen so many of my friends, bro, like their lives change because of one video. And like, I got my bro A Parker, like he's doing great. I saw Nick D when he was blowing up. Montel Fish, I don't know Montel Fish personally, but I saw him when he blew up. And then Paul Russell, like I was literally at his show when Miss Poli-Sci was going crazy because somebody else posted it. And then Lil Boo Thing took off. And I'm like, oh, if the only thing like is stopping me from a potential opportunity is me not willing to just record myself and try, or like me not being willing to fail enough time, like me looking stupid, I'm like, I'm missing out on the potential for my life to change potentially.
Sure.
Now I have to be responsible for having the infrastructure after that and to make it sustainable. But like sometimes that's like the hurdle that is the hardest for people, or even just putting out their
Yes.
music. And I'm like, I wouldn't be Strawberries and Wine would have never had the opportunity to blow up if I didn't just put it out. Like if I overthought it or was like, it's not perfect. And so I'm trying to have the same approach with content. And I wouldn't be able to have this identity that I found if I would have like let that viral moment like defeat me and be like, oh, I didn't capitalize on it, you know? So yeah.
That's a great way to think about it. I love that mentality, and it's just not being overly precious about what you put out.
Yeah.
And I think that has absolutely shifted over the last 10 years or so. Is like there's so much more acceptance at imperfection right now.
Yeah.
And people are just, it's actually encouraged to not be perfect. It's encouraged to just see the process a little bit more. And it's encouraged and accepted to regularly try and fail and release stuff, and maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but it doesn't matter because you got something new a week later or a day later or whatever. It's just like, it's not like you gotta, everything you drop has to be your magnum opus anymore. That's like, we've shifted away from that. And it's great to see that you've embraced that, and you did that early on. But now that you've established this infrastructure where you have a community, and once they do find you, you're kind of like getting completely set up. So when you do get that life-changing video, that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Like, you will have that all set and put together, and then that is how you're going to sustain and not let that moment pass you by either.
No, 100%. They call it disposable content, or somebody did, and I was like, oh, that's a good way to view it. Like, cool, I put this out. It was my best effort. You know, it's okay. You know, don't be too precious.
On to the next. Whether it works or doesn't matter. Like you can't
control the outcome.
Fret over that too much. Yeah. Exactly. You can't control the outcome. That's great. So Jaylon, tell me, like, where you go from here. What's next? What are you working on these days? Yeah.
So basically this past year I've just been putting out a bunch of singles, and in addition to the building community, I've done a lot of collaborations with people. And so I'm kind of working on a project I was thinking about. I might call it like pen pals or something, where it's like cool. All the songs with my friends, and then also kind of stepping into more of like showing all sides of me, right? So like musician, entrepreneurship, like I love talking to you. Like if we were offline, I would be like, yo, let's just chop it up, because I really do get excited about like independence and building something from nothing and seeing it through. And so being able to show that and kind of help other artists, or at least share my story, at least. I eventually want to do a headline tour or just show, just because I think I've been a little nervous. I've always been like, I don't want to jump off too soon. Obviously, I've done other like showcases and support, and I think I'm a great live performer. But, you know, it still comes back to like, do you feel like you really have a core audience that is ready to support and show up? So I think that's one thing I'm working on. And then just building out this nomad world. Like, I really want people to know like that home can be right where you are. And like, I have this phrase where I'm like, I'm always in motion. So I feel like as an artist, at least for me, like I really do like moving around and meet new people and new experiences. And so finding people who really enjoy that, or that captures their essence, and sharing my music with them. Even like thinking through genre, like I realized lately through a supporter that, you know, I really make a lot of what they call kind of like non-toxic R&B. I don't know if they call it that, but she called it that. And I thought that was kind of cool. So it like helped me kind of identify like, oh, this is how someone views my music. How do I lean into that? Like just questions that as an artist, sometimes you just don't know, or you just assume things that's not necessarily how you're being perceived. Definitely. And so just that stuff gets me really excited, because it doesn't feel like I'm just throwing stuff hoping that something sticks. It feels like I'm moving with intention. And so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love the song Floatin' that you put out with John Rowe.
Yeah, appreciate
it. Great tune. Yeah, and it's cool. Yeah, I love all of the collaborations that you've been doing. So that's cool, and you continue to challenge yourself and push yourself, and yeah, that's great. Well, Jaylon, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I'm glad we could chop it up, and not everybody can hang like this. That can just go deep on the business.
Man.
So
we only touched the surface, man. For real.
I know. We're gonna do it again soon, for sure. Well, I got one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
Man, somebody else asked me this other day, and I was like, man, I want longevity in the sense of like, I want my music to last beyond me and to like really connect on that note, to really impact people at a high level. I want it to be financially profitable. Like, I want to say, oh, hey, I made a living off of my music career that I was able to build a legacy with. And ultimately, man, I just want to connect with people. I think that's, like you said, the new business, man. It's like, it's not just data. It's like these are real people, and now us as artists have to figure out how to get that information from these corporations and connect with the fans directly. So, hoping to do that more.
Love it. Jaylon Ashaun.
Come on.
Great chatting. Thanks so much.
Man, appreciate you, Ari.
Today's episode was edited by Ari Davids, with music by Grassroots District, and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.